Hello, this video is intended to show you how to complete your response to literature draft for the reading category of our summer school English course. So the first thing you're going to want to do is open up Google Classroom. I'm going to use the English 1P Google Classroom, but if you're in English 2P, the setup will be the same. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to weekly assignments, week 4. Reading response to literature draft. I'm going to open up the model responses. You are going to open up your own files that you can edit. Those will be up like on the upper left-hand side if you open up the assignment. So I'm going to open up this doc, which should be blank if you haven't done anything on it yet. I'm going to open up this doc, which is the prompt, and then I'm going to scroll down to the organizer because I'm going to need that for this assignment. I'm going to open up a couple more things. I'm going to go to the daily assignment from July 5th and click on that daily assignment. And I want you to open up your version of that assignment. If you have it, if you did it on paper, then grab your copy on paper. But most of you did it on docs. So I'm going to open up my model. But you'll need your version of this daily assignment from July 5th. And then finally, you're going to need your poem. So I'm going to have my poem right here. It's For Poets by Al Young. And I'm just going to have this open here. You might have a paper copy of your poem. That's probably better. So go ahead and get that out. If you're using the digital version of your poem, go ahead and open that up. So you want to have the poem open. You want the daily assignment from July 5th, and you want the organizer, and then finally your doc where you're going to write the draft. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my daily assignment, and I'm writing about 4 poets. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the answer that I came up with on July 5th, because that's the answer, the A in my ACE paragraph. Because remember, this response to literature draft is basically an ACE paragraph, or a CER paragraph if you prefer that. Acronym. So this is my answer or my claim, depending on which acronym you're thinking about. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and paste this. And I'm going to get rid of the number 1. And then also, I want to add the author's name here, since this is my first sentence. Okay, I noticed that I made a typo here. I meant to say to be fully alive. So that's what I'm going with as my answer, my claim. Now I'm going to go to the organizer. And in the organizer, if you want, you can go ahead and fill this part in, right? Al Young, For Poets. And possible meaning for the poem. If you want, you can copy your possible meaning. But you don't have to. This is just to help you if it helps. Remember, I'm not scoring the organizer. And then I'm going to grab some textual evidence from the poem. So I go back to the poem. So to be fully alive, one of the lines that really stands out to me is these 2 lines right here. Commune with snakes and be the very hero of birds. I'm going to copy those lines. And I'm going to put them right here in my organizer. Okay, and then I'm going to put a slash, because remember, that's how we cite poetry. I'm sorry, when we cite poetry, when we quote poetry, if we want to show a line break, see how this is 1 line, 2 lines. The line break is after snakes and before the ampersand, this little symbol, which means and, of course. So I put the slash right there. And then I put quotes in front of and after. And then I'm going to put the line number as well. So I have to count for this one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. No, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh yeah, I got it right the first time. Okay, so it's lines 10 and 11 is how I would do that. Okay, so this is my evidence. Now I have to explain what it means. And you may be familiar with the say, mean, matter organizer. This is basically what this organizer is. This is the say, What does the poem say? What does the poem mean when it says that? And then how does it show the meaning of the poem? So this here is kind of combining the C and the E of the ace paragraph. So what does this mean? So these lines show that, right? So you can use these sentence starters. You don't have to, but I think they're helpful. These lines show that poets need to have close relationships with other living beings, including snakes and birds. Okay, now that I think about it, I might change my claim, because I said poets have to be fully alive, but I think this might be more about being part of nature, being attuned to, or being in touch with, like being aware of, being sensitive to other living beings. So before I do the meaning part, this last box, let me go back to my poem. I'm going to see if there's any other lines that make me think about that idea of being part of nature. So swim upstream, breathe in trees. I think both of those. I'm going to go with come out into the sunlight, breathe in trees. So I'm going to go back over here, and let me just copy that. And I'm going to go right here. Come out into the sunlight, breathe in trees, which, if I remember correctly, is lines 8 and 9, but I'm going to double check that. Okay. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 7 and 8. 7 and 8. Good thing I double checked. Okay, so these lines, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say the poet uses, what literary devices breathe in trees? I think it's a metaphor. To show the need for poets to be part of nature. Okay. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to change my meaning of my poem. Now, it's not necessary. You might have gotten it exactly how you want it on the first try. But as you're looking at the textual evidence and you're thinking about what the evidence means, you might change your possible meaning, your claim, or your answer for the ace paragraph. That's okay. In fact, that's often a good sign that you're reading, you're getting evidence you're making a claim, you're getting evidence to support your claim. And then as you're reading the evidence again, you're saying, oh, you know what, maybe I didn't quite express that quite the way I wanted to. If you don't change your claim, that's okay too. But changing your claim can be a sign that you're understanding more the second or third or fourth read. And that's great. All right, so is that poets, I'm going to change this to poets have to be part of nature in order to write poetry. And I better go back and change that in my draft. Okay, so here's my draft. All right. We're going to come back to this in a minute. All right, so now I just need to finish talking about how the evidence shows the meaning of the poem. This is the E in the E in ACE, explain or elaborate, or the R in CER, rationale or reasoning. By communing, or to commune with snakes, means to have a very close relationship with them. And to be a hero to birds also implies intimacy, or maybe not intimacy, also implies being very important in birds' lives. This is only possible if the poets are aware of and in tune with nature. All right. And then finally, the use of metaphor shows that it's not enough to simply see a tree. Poets have to breathe in the trees as though the trees themselves were oxygen. This reveals that Young wants poets to be deeply connected to nature. Okay. So, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to grab this line. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to go ahead and put this line right here in my draft. Now, of course, I'm not going to leave it in the table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go cut. And instead of just putting the quote, right, which is just kind of weird, like, well, where did that come from? I'm going to put, for example, Young writes, the poets should commune with snakes and be the very hero of birds. I'm going to put my period here. Okay. And then I'm going to cut and paste. Oops. Just kidding. Let's try that again. Cut and paste. Cut and paste. There we go. Now, since I have different fonts here, I'm going to fix the font. I'm going to make the font all the same color. I mean, all the same font on all the same size. To do that, you highlight the whole thing, and then you just pick the font you want. Please use only one of the so-called professional fonts like Arial, Calibri. One of these ones at the top here. Any of these are okay. Like, don't use Comic Sans. It's too hard to read. Don't use Corsiva. It's too hard to read. It might look really nice, but it's hard to read. So stick with one of these fonts here. Arial, Times, Calibri, Cambria, any of those would be fine. All right. So now I'm on the right track here, right? I've got my ace, my answer. Oh, I'm sorry. Poets have to be part of nature, not poets have part of nature. Okay. And then I've got my first example, and I've got my explanation of my example. All right. Now, if you wanted to start a new paragraph here, that would be okay. But if you don't, that's all right as well. So let's go ahead and copy this table. And we can delete this table here. Table, and let's copy this one. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do something like additionally, Young writes, come out into the sunlight, breathe in trees. I'll fix the font when I'm done. Okay, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to add the poet here uses metaphor to show the need for poets to be part of nature. Now, that's not explained yet, so here's my last. The use of metaphor shows it's not enough to simply see a tree. Poets have to breathe in the trees as though the trees themselves were oxygen. This reveals that Young wants poets to be deeply connected to nature. All right, and that's it. I've done my draft. Now, let me just make sure that my font is all the same. I'm just going to use Arial. Let me show you another way you could do this. If this seems a little dense for you, you could set it up like this. You could do a paragraph break here, and you could do a paragraph break here, and that would work as well. But if you keep it all as one paragraph, also fine with me. I'm going to leave it as one paragraph because I've been telling you, write a paragraph, and I don't want anyone to look at this model and see 3 paragraphs and panic and think, maybe you haven't watched the video yet and you panic and you think that you're writing an essay, despite what I said. So I'm going to leave it as one paragraph, but if you want to split it up into multiple paragraphs, that's easier for you. That's totally fine as well. All right, so this is basically what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with an answer to the question. You're going to have an example. You're going to explain the example. You're going to have a second example. and you're going to explain the second example, and that's it, and you are all set. And I will see you soon.